Hello, everybody. It's Simon Dixon here, and welcome to episode 63 of Bank to the Future Live. Today, we're doing a broadcast to answer as many questions as we can from new investors that have registered. In the last couple of weeks, we've had about 4,500 new investors register on our platform. And so we wanted to make sure that we don't assume anything, and we give you an opportunity to get your questions answered. So if we haven't met yet, I'm Simon Dixon. I'm the CEO of Bank to the Future. And we have Famida with us, who is from the investor relations team. Should be picking out your questions and moderating in general. And so really, this is your opportunity for us to answer many of your questions. We did in that big boost of signups, new investors. We have had a bit of a backlog in our verification and certification, which we'll go through today to help you understand what that means for your account, and also a bit of a backlog on tickets. So we're getting on top of those at the moment, but also at the same time, the COVID situation means that we're pretty understaffed because some people have been affected by that. So we're making sure that we get through all those right now. But really, this was an opportunity because some of you might have been waiting a bit longer than usual, the usual type of service we like to deliver. Then we thought we'd dedicate this episode of Bank to the Future Live just for you. We go live each and every week. And this one is really for the beginners and the new people to the platform. And Famida has actually picked out a bunch of your questions, some of the most common questions. And then feel free to also use the live chat and let us know what you'd like us to answer. So Famida, should we just jump straight into the questions and get through as many as we can in the hour?
Oh, I was just on mute.
Okay.
All right. So typical sort of questions that are. Oh, actually, I just want to start off by saying thank you to everyone that's been patient with their support tickets. You can reach us through Telegram. So if you want to find us there, we'll put it in the live chat. Just ping over an urgent question. You can also change your ticket to urgent. You can send a ticket and resend it and just title it as urgent if it is really urgent, like if your account is hacked or you've lost your 2FA, or you don't know where your money's gone. So those are urgent and they will definitely be picked up within 24 hours. All right, cool. So typical questions that are coming through, Simon. Signing up process, how is this different for US and non-US users?
Yeah, so a bit of background. We would love to have the most simple user experience, but one of the things we have to do at Bank to the Future is simultaneously comply with global securities laws. And while we believe that everyone should be treated equally, each country has their own laws and we need to comply with those laws. So if, for example, you are from the US, then your user experience is different from somebody that may be from a different country or outside the US. And what we have done is we've had to build custom processes for countries around the world to make sure that we comply with their securities laws, because unfortunately there is no unification of securities laws. And obviously the crypto markets, many of you, if you're from the crypto markets, you're used to an exchange, and an exchange doesn't have to comply with any of the securities laws that we need to comply to. So you're used to a slightly different user experience. But when you're dealing with actual regulated products like we are, so we give people the ability to actually get equity in the companies, which is very different to tokens or cryptocurrencies. And therefore, normally that is saved just for the venture capitalists, ultra high wealthy people. If you look at the wealthiest people in our industry, they've always made a large position in Bitcoin, and then they always supplement that with private equity. and they end up a shareholder in many of the companies. So at Bank to the Future, we've used our position to be able to give that opportunity to our investors, because we can often get an allocation in a funding round, for example, like Celsius, and therefore we're able to give that to you. Now, we are only able to work with a subset of investors in the world because the securities laws state that there are only certain people that should be able to invest in this type of high risk, high return asset class. And so we have to be mindful and comply with global securities laws. So we end up with a different process. So if you're speaking to one investor, you're wondering why are they able to do something that you're not able to do. It's simply because you're both from a different country and the rules in your country are different. So we have to comply with those. The major difference is really, there's minor differences around the world, but the major differences are particularly in the US. So in the US, there are two different types of pitches that we can work with. One is what's known, and you don't need to know about this in terms of the geeky names and legal jargon and all that stuff. But US securities laws essentially has two types of pitches. One's that you're allowed to market. And by market, it means that we can go on BF Live, we can tell everyone about it. And then there are pitches which are just open to our members, which have been with us for a while, and we're not allowed to market. We're strictly prohibited from telling people about it outside of our members. Celsius is an example of a pitch that we've got live right now where we are allowed to market it. But the requirements in the US when you market a pitch is that nobody is allowed to invest until firstly we know exactly who they are, and that's what we call verification. Verification is the process that we have to adhere to, which means that we can't accept funds or investment from somebody that we don't know who they are. And the way that you prove who you are, there's a few things we need to do. Is firstly, you need to upload your proof of address, and secondly, your proof of photo ID. Normally, you do the proof of photo ID first, and then we have a system whereby we can do facial recognition to check the identity document is actually you using the photo. And the proof of address is a manual check because there is no automated system that can do address recognition. And that is where you reside. Now, many people have complications around that because they might be dual citizens or they might reside in one place. The most important thing is you will have an address and you will be paying tax in a jurisdiction, or you might live in a jurisdiction where you don't pay tax, but you're registered to be, it's the jurisdiction in which you're paying tax. We need to know where you live with a proof of identity, a proof of address document. And then we need to check that. And there are certain restrictions. So once we know who you are and we know where you're from, we then have to comply with all sorts of other checks, which everyone needs to do if you're in a securities business. And so that's making sure you're not on certain lists of people that aren't able to invest and various other things that we have to do. As much as we've tried to make the process as simple as possible. We can only operate within the laws of what we need to operate and do. The second process is once we know who you are, we're required to know whether you qualify to invest. And in the US, if we market a pitch, we need actual documentation to prove that you are someone that qualifies to invest, not based upon what we want to do, but based upon what the regulator in the US says is allowed to invest in this asset. And there's three ways to prove who you are, that you're able to invest. One is that you meet the net asset requirement, which is that you have $1 million in assets or more. And that excludes things like your primary residency. The SEC doesn't allow that to be included in the definition.
Can we just double make sure that this is for US or non-US?
This is US. And the other way of requiring is $200,000 of income. So you typically have to prove for 2 years that you earned that. But you might have done that through with your partner as well, through joint income, in which case it has to be $300,000. And you'd have to upload some tax documentation so that we can see that you earned over $200,000 or more. Or the third option is we give you a template. You can download that template, and that template needs to be signed by either your accountant, your lawyer, your broker, some finance professional, bank manager, some kind of regulated entity that has responsibility that can vouch that you are an accredited investor. And so those are the three options that the US regulators allow. Now, with a pitch that is marketed, the requirement is that we have to verify and certify that. So verify proof of address, proof of ID. Certify is ensuring we have the documentation where you can prove that you're a qualifying investor. Once we have been through that, then you are able to pledge, make an investment. For non-US investors, there are slightly different requirements. So the first is that you can actually sign up and you'll be directed to our identity section. And in the identity section, you can go through the same process that the US would go through to prove that you are who you say you are. Upload your ID, send a photo, match it up with facial recognition, then we know who you are. But you can also upload a proof of residential address. And while we're waiting for that to be verified by a human, because there's no automated way of verifying that without a human check in the middle, the technology just doesn't exist yet, then you can actually proceed to a pitch. For the US, they wouldn't be able to proceed until that is actually complete. And then you can also go through what's known as a self-certification. Self-certification is where if you click on the pitch, you can either do it is in the identity section, or even if you try to go to the investor page on a pitch, it will walk you through making sure that you've done the self-certification. But that is you just simply telling us that you are who is able to invest in your country. And we list all the different requirements in your country. And then you're able to proceed and make an investment. You can also to unlock further features on the platform, you can do full certification, and it will be required to take certain actions on the platform. And that simply means that you take all the things that you already agreed to online, but regulators require us to have a signed document whereby you agree to what you already agreed online. So although you agreed online, we just need a document. So we give you a template, you download that template, you sign it. You can do a digital signature. You put your date, the date that you signed, and your name, and then upload that. And then you are good to go. You're fully certified. You're fully verified. But remember, you can still make an investment and perform certain activities by being just verified and self-certified. And you don't need to necessarily, depending on your country, wait for the proof of address. Now, the important thing is that's a complicated set of rules. The platform won't let you do anything that you're not allowed to do. That's the important part. Obviously, everyone wants to know, but if we allow you to invest, then you can invest. If we're not allowing you to invest because it puts up a big screen of you having to wait for something, then you're not allowed to invest at that stage until a certain action has been taken, and we'll display what action is pending and what is waiting for. So the idea really is just go as far as you can on the platform, and our platform won't let you perform something that you're not allowed to perform, is really the general rule of thumb.
Cool. Thanks for that. You've just covered basically everything. So verification, certification. Did you want to mention about self-certified sophisticated investor? I guess that's available for anyone that's not US, right?
So there's different types of people and self-certify is just a process of you telling us that you meet one of the criteria that the regulator in your country has set out for being able to invest in a high risk, high return private equity like this. And so what we do is we have the self-certification process where You answer some questions, you let us know there's different types of investors. It can be done based upon your experience investing. It can be based upon your net worth. It can be based upon your income. It can be based upon your suitability. Again, it's different for each country, but all you need to do is go to the pitch, click on the investor page. And again, if you haven't done the self-certification, it will ask you all the questions and you just need to work through them. Part of it, we might need to ask you that you fully understand what investing in private equity is. And what we try to do is not just fire you a bunch of legal jargon that no one reads. We actually give, break down in real simple language how this product works. And you answer the questions so that you can demonstrate you fully understand it, because we don't want you just, ticking a bunch of boxes. We actually want you to understand what you're investing in, because that's really important for us. And many people might confuse, if you're from the crypto market, it's a cryptocurrency with private equity. And these are very different products that have very different implications in terms of time frame to investment. And so self-certification is the process of us making sure that we're giving you all the information that you need, and you can demonstrate that you've understood it, and you tell us that you are the type of person that's able to invest. And if you don't go through that, then it won't allow you to invest. So you don't need to be worried about whether you can or can't, because the platform won't let you do something you can't do.
Cool. And so whilst the certification is pending, so whilst our compliance team are going through and verifying IDs and stuff, what can a non-US investor and a US investor do in the meantime?
So let's start with the US. In that case, because the pitch is marketed, then you have to wait for verification and certification before you can deposit, before you can make an investment, before you can actually, the requirement is that all needs to be complete before you can proceed. If you're not from the US, then you can actually deposit Bitcoin, deposit Ethereum. You can invest directly in the pitch. You don't actually have to. So, many people are used to a cryptocurrency exchange where you deposit funds and then you can trade. At BnkToTheFuture, we actually made a user experience where you don't need to deposit up front. You can just simply go to the pitch and select a payment method. The payment methods on the pitches are done via third parties, so we have to pass on any third-party transaction fees, but you can also deposit to your account for free. If you are actually going to be depositing, dollars, then you will need to have additional verifications actually completed before that it will let you do that. And so that's something you'd have to wait for.
Also, can I just ask the major difference between an organization that's wanting to invest?
Yeah, so we allow for individuals to invest or organizations to invest. And organization means a company, a trust, a charity, whatever it may be, some kind of legal entity that's not you as an individual. And the process for getting an organizational account set up is a lot stricter and harder because that's the requirements that we have to adhere to. So with an individual account, we just need to know who you are and that you qualify to invest. That's verification and certification. But with an organization, we need to know that all of the people behind the company, who they are. We need to know who the shareholders are, who the directors are, and this concept called an ultimate beneficial owner, which means that sometimes people create structures and somebody else benefits from it. Our requirements are to know who actually benefits from this investment, and then we need to complete the same process for all of those individuals, as well as make sure that we've got all the legal documents, like that you're authorized to be able to invest for the company, and all the other directors have signed off that that individual is able to invest for the company. So it's the same with all accounts. If you set up a bank account for a company, it's a lot harder than if you do it as an individual. If you try and set up a stockbroking account for a company, the requirements are always a bit harder because you're dealing with many more people versus an individual. But the process is still the same. The rules are the same. There are a list of which types of companies qualify to invest. The platform won't let you do anything unless you do qualify. Yeah, you just have to work through a bit more of that paperwork, and the time frame to get those all verified and certified is a lot longer than an individual, because it's a lot more, we have to put specialist team members onto that because it's a lot more lengthy process. And it's the highest risk process from, regulators. It's organizations and companies is where most people that they're trying to capture through anti-money laundering laws. It normally happens through companies and organizations as opposed to through individuals. So they put much stricter rules on those.
Cool. We do also have a page on our platform where it just highlights exactly what you can do under what verification or certification status. So we will post that in the live chat for you. I wanted to ask about currencies. So on the platform, we have a few different types of cryptos. We have BFT as well. So just wondering if you could mention some stuff about how you can invest, what you can invest with, what are the restrictions, and are these restrictions different for US investors and non-US investors?
Yeah, so the rules in the US are slightly different from the rules in other countries. In the US, it's a requirement that all funds have to be what's known as an escrow. An escrow is essentially a third-party regulated institution that can sit in the middle and act as a mediator in case there is ever a dispute. So the regulators want additional protections for investors by stating that if all funds are held with a third party that's regulated, then if for any reason there was a dispute between an investor or Bank to the Future and those funds hadn't been invested yet, then the escrow could actually act as a mediator in the middle. So the way that it works in the US is they want all funds to stay in the US via US regulated escrow agencies. And so therefore for the US, we have to put a middle party between us and your funds and you as the investor. And so therefore they obviously charge fees. They've got all their regulatory costs. And we have to integrate with third-party systems, which means that you're not just dealing directly with us. We're also dealing with a third-party escrow in the middle, their technology, their systems, their fees, and all sorts of stuff. So we use a partner called Prime Trust that's authorized to be able to do that. And the currencies that they allow us to accept at the moment is Bitcoin, which they will convert to dollars. And we recommend that when you actually invest with the payment method, we give a full description of how it actually works, how the conversion works, what happens if it refunds. And so rather than going through every process and every payment method, when you select that payment method, it will tell you how it will work. They also accept Ethereum, and they also accept dollars via either ACH, which is the local internal system for sending funds in the US, or an international wire transfer, which is where you could send dollars from a non-US denominated account, a non-US account, or you can use credit card as well. And so those are the different ways. Everything is on our platform is done in dollars. And you can also use stable coins once you're actually fully verified and certified. I believe that is an option only open to non-US. I need to check those. We used to have a very straightforward process, but regulations have changed over time and made more and more complexity that sometimes is hard for me to keep up with, but our team are obviously on top of all these things. And then for the non-US, we actually have things like altcoin payment methods, which is where they're all converted into Bitcoin. we have Bitcoin, we have Ethereum, but there's less friction in the middle there as well, because there's less restrictions on certain jurisdictions and requirements to go via US entities to do that.
We just touch on fees if you can as well.
Yeah, so the rules are pretty simple at Bank to the Future. We pass on all third-party transaction fees. And so where we have to go via a third party, we will disclose on each payment method what they charge, and we will charge that on. So when we have to, for crypto payments, when we have to go via a third party, depending on which country you're from, we might use our partner like Coin Payments. And so they charge fees, and those fees are charged on. But if you actually deposit to Bank to the Future, which is not an option for the US, unfortunately, because it has to all go through escrow tied to one deal, then there's a significant saving there as well. So it's a bit, if I go through every single fee, there's two places where you can find them. The first is click on the fees page. So we can make sure.
Yeah, I just posted that in the live chat. Yeah.
But also before each time you click on a payment method, it will disclose the exact fee, break it down, and show it to you so that you don't have to remember. It's just relevant to the one. So the country and the payment method that you're choosing. If I went through every rule, we'd be here for 6 hours because you've got every country, then every payment method, then every third party. And if I iterated that to every possibility, it would be a very boring AMA.
Yeah.
And it's upsetting that we have to spend so much time on regulations and compliance, because really what we're here to do is try and give you the best experience that we possibly can by giving you access to deals that most people don't have access to because they're not professional connected venture capitalists or anything. And unfortunately, just due to the nature of this product, you end up spending probably 80 to 90% of my time on complying with regulations rather than actually trying to deliver the best service we possibly can for our users and customers. But that's not your problem, that's our problem.
Okay, if we can maybe mention a little bit more about the deposits, who can deposit, who can't deposit, what can we deposit?
Yeah, so simple rule, head over to the fund section of your account, and if it has a deposit button, then you can deposit it. If there's no deposit button, then you can't deposit it. If you require to be verified or certified before depositing, then the button won't be there, or it will just tell you that you can't deposit. So really the platform won't let you do something you can't do. So if it lets you do it, then you can. If it doesn't let you do it, then you can't.
Yeah, I mean, so we do get curious investors and users asking, why is it that they can't deposit? Has it been restricted? If it has been restricted, then why?
Yeah, so there's a number of different reasons. One might be that you live in a country where we have to do enhanced due diligence, which means that countries around the world have placed United Nations, European, OFAC, these different lists that exist, whereby if someone is from a certain country and you're engaging in a financial transaction with them, you have to do additional due diligence to ensure that they're not engaged in certain industries like weapons and various other things. So sometimes we need to get you to answer additional questions. And that will be either communicated through a support ticket, or it will be the fact that your verification and certification is still pending. And so really what you're trying to get to is go over, in your account, clicking on the identities, and you're trying to get it where everything's green. Your verification's green, your certification's green, you've self-certified, and then if you fully certify, then you are able to perform all actions on the platform. And then once that's done, it's done.
So what currencies can we deposit?
So if you're from the US, you can't deposit currencies at all. You have to just invest in pitches, because everything has to go via a third-party escrow, deal by deal. If you're from outside of the US, You should be able to deposit BnkToTheFuture tokens to get the membership, US dollars, Bitcoin, ETH, or you don't even need to do any of that. You can just go straight to the pitch you want to invest in, select that you want to invest, and then select the payment method that then goes straight to that pitch.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And BnkToTheFuture token also offers a discount on trading fees.
Yeah, so the BnkToTheFuture token is the native token for the BnkToTheFuture platform. We built it just to give utility. We integrated with this to give utility to our investors. The perks of that is that if you stake and hold 10,000 BnkToTheFuture tokens on the platform, then you can actually get 48 hours priority access to deals. Often we do deals just to priority access members. Sometimes that happens. Or deals get sold out just to priority access members and never go public on the platform. So that's a perk worth having. The other one is if you own 100,000 or more, every time you invest, it's really incentivizes you, because for every $1,000 you invest through the platform, when the pitch closes, once all the legal work's complete, you'll get 1,000 BnkToTheFuture tokens. That's called our Premium Plus membership. And in order to have that, you need to hold a minimum of 100,000 BnkToTheFuture tokens on the platform. Also, if you're going to be buying and selling in the future, we have a secondary market whereby after certain lock-in periods, normally 1 year, some companies will go on our secondary market if they've had a good degree of success in that year. And you can actually get a 50% discount on all those fees that are charged for buying and selling. And if you pay them with BnkToTheFuture tokens. So it's worth having a balance on there if you're going to be using the secondary market. Later this year, we're going to be working on some other more interesting things for the BnkToTheFuture token. But those are the main things we have at the moment for our investors.
Cool. I think it's worth also mentioning to sell on the secondary market, you have to be fully certified.
Yeah, so when you place a sell order, if you haven't certified your account, it won't let you place a sell order until you have downloaded that document, signed it, and it's just simply you agreeing to what you've already agreed online. But we need to actually hold the record of your signature in order to actually allow to transfer those funds. So full certifications required in order to place a sell order on the secondary market.
Cool. That's all basically the basic questions. So now moving on to, somebody who's invested, it's, they might not have got a confirmation email, or, they're searching, they can't find it, what's going on? We've been getting quite a few questions in our support. They can't find the confirmation email to say that the investment has been successful. But actually in our back end, we can see that it has been successful. It is paid. How is it that an investor can be reassured that this investment has gone through, it is successful? Because right now they're seeing a pending status. Is this something that will be changing in some time?
Yeah, so really there's two sections you should look at. So the fund section and the portfolio section. The fund section is where you can select a currency like Bitcoin, Ethereum, or dollars, and you can see all of the deposits or investments or withdrawals that you've actually made. We're actually in the middle of revamping the platform and switching over to a revamped portfolio section. So the portfolio section that you see right now is really just where you can see the investments that you've made. In that portfolio section, it doesn't actually list your individual investments. It just shows that you've made an investment in this company and the status of the pitch is pending. What that means, if you click over it, is that we haven't signed the legal work and that we don't own the shares yet. So once we actually own the shares and we hold those shares, which doesn't happen until several weeks after a deal is closed, we will update that status, and you can see that the shares have actually been issued. And once we own the shares, then we can give you your share certificates and all of that stuff. So it's held as pending in the portfolio until the shares have actually, the share certificates, the share registers, and all the legal work has actually been complete. In the fund section, if you actually deposited to your account and made an investment, you'll see all those transactions there. One thing that we temporarily have at the moment is if you invested directly into the pitch, then that used to display in the fund section, but we're actually moving that over to the portfolio section. But we're several months away from releasing our completely revamped portfolio section. So in the intermediary stage, you have to kind of rely on your email. Now, I guess the challenge is that some people, our emails might be going to their spam or their junk. So the best thing to do is to make sure, because you're going to want this address whitelisted, because in the future, every time there's an investor update, it will be sent to you, a notification will be sent to you via email. And it's really important that you receive those emails. So on the platform, we have two main emails that would be used in order to send you notifications. One is info, I-N-F-O, at BnkToTheFuture.com, and the other is app, A-P-P, at BnkToTheFuture.com. Make sure that you figure out how to whitelist those addresses. So if you go into your junk mail, and obviously every email provider is slightly different, try and find the Bank to the Future emails, and then most emails will have a button saying not junk or not spam, and then you can make sure that all future emails don't go to your spam folder. Or if you know how to whitelist an email, then make sure you get those two emails whitelisted through that. But yeah, unfortunately, because what happens is that because every time someone posts in the forum, if you're following a pitch, then it will actually send you a notification every time someone posts a new forum. And maybe when you're receiving a lot of emails and you're really engaged and following the forum, then that might mean that it's getting picked up as junk and spam and not getting through to your inbox.
Yeah.
There is another thing as well. Sometimes there's a delay in us getting a confirmation from the third-party payment provider. So in the case of Prime Trust, when they're converting the Bitcoin, that can take up to 2 days sometimes, and we won't get a notification back. And some people never send the funds, so it sits there as pending. Then some people send the funds and Prime Trust are processing them. So sometimes there's a bit of a delay there. Even with non-US Bitcoin payments through us, not through the third party, we require 6 confirmations until it's marked as actually paid. And I know many of you are used to the user experience of an exchange where you can see all those confirmations. All of that is going to be addressed in the new portfolio section. But we're several months from being able to release the revamped portfolio based upon all your feedback and everything that you'd like to see.
We also forgot to mention that when you verify and you certify, we actually give BF tokens.
Yeah, so because we know that nobody enjoys verifying and certifying, I have to do it a lot, but it's not a fun process. So we wanted to take some of the sting out of it. And if you complete full verification, self-certification, and full certification, you can actually get up to 5,000 Bank to the Future tokens as a thank you. And unless you've actually made an investment, you can't withdraw them. So it goes halfway towards your premium membership, if you like. But if you actually make an investment, then those are your tokens to do with as you choose. You can withdraw them. And that's our bonus to you as a thank you for going through a process to help us be able to offer this to you by us complying with all of our obligations.
And just to reconfirm, so whilst the Celsius pitch is still open, people are still investing, there is a cap for the amount of US investors that are allowed to invest, right?
Yeah, this one's a real pain. The way that we structure our investment is that the only way this becomes possible is that we essentially act as one investor, and we set up a special company that's going to hold the shares. And then we pool all of the investors together and you become shareholders in this special company that we set up that owns the shares in Celsius. This is really what makes it possible, because if Celsius had to have hundreds and hundreds of shareholders, every time they need a signature on something, it becomes practically impossible. Also, the more shareholders you have, it puts off further funding in the future, because investors might be put off because of the length of time it takes to get a decision made. And also, it actually increases the regulatory requirements you have to adhere to. So if you secure a lot of investors, then you might actually, and the company has to become public. And becoming public is a very, very expensive process that means that they have to adhere to much, much higher standards, external audits and all sorts of stuff that can actually end up sending an early stage company bankrupt just trying to comply with it. So we pull everyone together, and that triggers in the US a rule which was written in the 1940s. Can you believe that 1940s and 33 acts are still what's actually controlling this in today's day and age? But the Investment Advisors Act of 1940 means that there is a massive, massive requirement once you have 100 investors or more, that actually makes this practically impossible. So we can only take on for each deal 99 US investors. And that causes a few problems, because when a deal like Celsius is going to be oversubscribed, everyone obviously is trying to race to be those 99 investors. We have to certify and verify them. And if there's a problem with that document, then unfortunately they lose their place in the queue. And it's not a very nice experience, unfortunately, but it's the best that is possible given the current regulatory environment. Hopefully those acts change in the future. But I think the US government has got other priorities right now that don't involve updating securities laws. But yeah, that's the reason for that. A further complication is because the regulators require us to use a third-party escrow. We don't, because we're not directly know whether the funds have been received or not. We have to wait for an answer from the third-party escrow. Many people actually say that they're going to invest, but then don't actually end up investing, which takes a spot in the queue. And then we have to wait for the third-party prime trust to tell us that they didn't actually invest. Then we can cancel it, and that opens up a spot in the queue. So it's not a very nice process. I think if we need to improve how that is communicated, but unfortunately, it's just us trying to fit a square peg in a round hole of securities laws that were created in the 30s and 40s.
This is why I think people love you, Simon. Somebody actually commented earlier in the chat saying they're really glad that they found you. They found you like a month ago or something. Always bringing the facts. Always bring the facts.
Well, we are pretty, I think we do more transparency than, and that's why we like partnering companies like Celsius, because they were built on the foundation of transparency.
But there is only so much that you can say though, right? So really, I would recommend that people just follow you also on your own YouTube account and Twitter.
Yeah, one of the downsides of running a regulated company is that you can't freely speak as much as you would like to. But yeah, we have to adhere to the guidelines of what we're allowed to do, because we want to bring this game-changing opportunity to people, and therefore we have to play within the confines of the rules. And that's the reason why we've been here for 10 years. So we were the world's first crypto securities business. There we go. And I need to wear my t-shirt. And yeah, we've been here for a while. The laws just keep changing globally, and we have to update our user experience. And that's why sometimes you as an investor might spot things in our platform that just really don't make sense. And sometimes it's because a law has changed. We had to make an update to the process, and then there might be something left in that process that doesn't really make sense anymore. So we do these weekly AMAs so that everyone can kind of let us know their challenges, and we look to do what we can to improve those as well and answer as many questions as we can.
Yeah, it's been frustrating to see everyone's frustration in support as well, all the emails that we're getting through. Like you just said, Simon, we have to wait on third parties to give us confirmation. If we don't have the confirmation, we can't actually tell you whether your money has come through or not. So it's quite difficult. All right. So when the
inevitability of regulators requiring more and more middle people, and that just creates more and more inefficiencies and creates a worse user experience for investors. But the regulators' solutions to trying to give investor protections is put more and more middle people in the middle. That incurs more and more fees. And really now compliance has just become a multi-billion-dollar business.
But also there are two different types of users, right? So there are ones that really don't want to be bombarded with all the email notifications and stuff. And then there are ones that are like, you're not giving me enough notifications. So, and then we're like stuck in between GDPR. So
yeah, that's another one.
So when Celsius closes completely, so when it completely closes, and now then we'll be doing the paperwork and stuff. Once all of that is finalized, that's when the investors will get their share certificates. That's when the investors will get their BF token bonus, right? That you mentioned earlier, if you are subscribed.
Yeah, so what happens here is the pitch then closes. That means the clock on the pitch is actually done. We've reached the time frame. We will then be working with the Celsius legal team, our legal team and the Celsius legal team, to close the deal as fast as possible. Sometimes we've got to do filings with the SEC and all sorts of stuff. That can take 2 to 4 weeks sometimes after a deal is actually closed. But once we've signed off on all the numbers, signed all agreements, shares have been transferred, we then will update the portfolio section. And you will be able to download your share certificate, which is your confirmation that the investment is in your name and all that type of stuff. And which is another reason why we have to do the verification, because the last thing you want is a shares issued to you, and there's a typo in your name, or it's not issued to you. Then that could cause lots of issues later. So it's very important for us to get this right in the beginning. Because it's not like a blockchain or crypto asset where ownership of the private key means that you own it. This is where there's ledgers and your name on it. So then the share certificates are then issued, and you'll be able to find everything there. And in the coming months, something to look forward to is we'll have a revamped portfolio section. We're actually in a recruitment drive at the moment, so be patient with us. We're actually doubling the size of our technology team and bringing in a new team that will actually allow us to release further products. We've got some really exciting stuff as well, but actually make sure that we're focusing on many of the changes that have happened and making sure we're completing those. And portfolio section is the one that's leading to lots and lots of confusion, because we need more information there to make sure that you're comfortable and can see everything.
Just a quick touch back on verification. So where are we at with that at the moment? Because I know that there are still, support, there's quite a long wait for investors right now and their questions, but we're getting through them as fast as we can. Thank you for bearing with us. But what's the situation looking like for verification right now? Because there's been hundreds of new registrations.
So we've had thousands of verifications over the last couple of weeks. We've got thousands of them done. At the moment, we've got 500 in the queue at the time of this recording. And we expect those to be done within the next 24 to 48 hours. But then each day we're getting hundreds and hundreds more. And at the same time, we have to get those. So for example, if you're from the US, that has to be signed off by a US broker. Again, we have to add middle people. If you're from the UK, it has to be signed off by a suitably authorized company in the UK. And, you know, we've actually gone out there and acquired companies so that we can make it as efficient as possible. But they still have to work sufficiently independent to make their own decisions as well, because we, you know, behind the back end, there's lots and lots of complications, but we've tried to make it as simple as possible given the complications that we have to adhere to.
Cool. Okay, so now just a quick question here. I can see one about using an exchange wallet. So there's a 10-minute window if you're wanting to invest with cryptocurrency. There's a 10-minute window. Could you touch on this and what complications that somebody might actually meet?
Yeah, so when you select that you want to make a crypto investment, obviously because cryptocurrency, the price can change significantly in 10 minutes. We give a 10-minute window for you to send your funds. We will actually hold that quote. So you have to have sent the funds within 10 minutes. If you can't meet that criteria, then the payment will actually be cancelled, and you need to actually go through the payment again and get a new quote, because it's always a live exchange rate that is then held for 10 minutes. Yeah, so that's now sometimes if you're sending those funds from an exchange, again, if you're not owning the private key, then you're using a third party, and that exchange might have a process that takes more than 10 minutes. So that can be complicated. What tends to happen is that although it's locked in for 10 minutes, as long as you send those funds within that 10-minute time frame, and that's obviously all recorded on the blockchain, then even if it takes slightly more than 10 minutes, it will still be confirmed. But once we receive it, we wait for a minimum of 6 confirmations. With Bitcoin, you know, that can be sometimes up to an hour, because you've got 10 minutes for every confirmation if all's included in the next block, and that depends on congestion or whatever. But as long as you send the payment within that 10-minute time frame, things should sort itself out. But it might be a couple of hours depending on how much you paid in your mining fee and stuff, depending on when you get the actual confirmation email. That's the non-US, but if you're from the US, again, we disclose the process. When investing, you have to send those funds to our third-party escrow, and then depending on what time they are received, they will use that to trade those in the next day, and you will get a confirmation once those are received and traded in. So yeah,
you can't mix and match either.
You can't invest some ETH and some Bitcoin. What you can do is, let's say you wanted to invest $2,000. You could make one investment in Bitcoin and invest $1,000 in Bitcoin. And then you could make a second investment in ETH and invest $1,000 in ETH. But you can't make a $1,000 investment with some Bitcoin and some ETH.
And that's another good point there as well, is that the minimum of investment, by the way, the minimum amount, yeah.
Yeah, so the minimum investment on the platform is $1,000. We found that that's a good entry point, which allows you to build a sufficiently diversified portfolio, and at the same time make sure that you're the type of investor that's able to invest in this asset class. But yeah, $1,000 tends to be the minimum for all pitches. Sometimes a pitch might decide that they only want to take $10,000, but we always, wherever we can, encourage our pitch and our companies to accept investments at that minimum $1,000 level.
Yeah, and if you've got USD on your BF account in your fund section, then it will show you that you can add that amount, right, to the investment.
Yep. So it will say what the minimum is when you're actually making a deposit. Also, something to look forward to: in approximately 1 to 2 months, you'll actually be able to deposit any fiat currency, send a bank wire, and it will be automatically converted to dollars. So that's a new feature that we're working on with our new partner.
Cool. we are at 4 o'clock, but I've got one question that that I think has actually popped up in the live chat about topping up. So how much can somebody top up their investment, so that how long can they go on topping up their investment, and how does one go around their account to top up? Or is it not actually top up, it's actually just go to the investment again, reinvest?
Yeah, so the way top up works is once you've made a minimum $1,000 investment, even if you were one of the US investors in the 99, the requirement in the US is that it's the number of investors, not how much you've invested. So therefore, once you've invested once, you can invest as many times as you want, as long as the pitch is still open. So if you've invested $1,000 and you later decide, well, I'd actually like to invest more, then you just simply go to the pitch, click invest again, and make the investment again. You can do that as many times as you like, for as long as the pitch is still open and accepting investments. You also notice that if you invest above $25,000 in the case of Celsius, that you'll get voting shares, which are known as A shares. All shares are the same, but the difference between A and B is simply voting in the SPV. So the special company that we set up, we have to put voting decisions by you if you are an A shareholder. That's normally a higher amount because there's an additional administrative burden to actually getting votes on certain decisions. But if, for example, you invested $10,000, you would get B shares. But then if you invested another $15,000, we'd sum those two investments together and you'd get A shares on all your investment. So we sum them together to make sure that you get, if you've invested over that threshold, no matter how many times you've invested, all of your shares will be voting shares.
All of your shares in Celsius? In
that particular case, yeah. So Celsius said the way the pitches work is minimum $25,000 in order to get voting shares. They're not, it's important distinction, they're not getting Celsius shares. We set up a special company, you get shares in that company, and for every share in that company you own, it will be backed by one share in Celsius. We'll be the actual investor on the cap date, on the share register for Celsius, and then you'll own shares in the special company. So it's in effect the same thing, but a slightly different, which allows this to happen.
And that's all covered in the terms that you can find in the investor zone?
Yeah, so there's two, for those of you that really want to go into the detail, we've got the platform terms and conditions, which outlines everything that I've explained, but in legal jargon. And then we also have an investment agreement. So when you actually make an investment, you can actually, there's an investment agreement that you actually agree to. That actually outlines the terms around this particular investment. And then if you want to see the details of what our special company will be investing in, for example, Celsius, then head over to the investor page. There's a document section, and you can see the agreement that our company will be signing with Celsius to subscribe to those shares. So there's kind of three main legal things if you want to go deep into the legals. Platform terms and conditions, which is just the general terms around using our platform, whether you have invested or not. The investment agreement is a unique agreement to every pitch, which you agree to when you make the investment. And then to understand more about how our company will be subscribing to those shares, then head over to the investor page on each individual pitch, go to the document section, and you can see all of the documents there that are relevant to the investment, and all the disclosures and everything that are very important.
Yeah, so there's a discussion forum, and then there's the investor zone. So only those who have invested in Celsius can access the investor zone, and those who haven't invested can still continue to chat and ask questions in the discussion zone, right? The discussion forum.
Yeah, so we have to filter the information into two. We have communications just between existing investors, and then communications between potential investors and people that just want to discuss the company in general. So the discussion forum is where you may not have invested yet, but you still want to have a discussion because you're exploring your investment. And that happens in the discussion forum. If you've actually invested, you get access to the investor zone. And the investor zone is a place where the company can communicate knowing that it's only their investors that have actually put cold hard money on the line. And so once the pitch closed, the investor zone actually becomes the place where you can continually have a dialogue, where you can ask questions, where we will post investor updates, and we can ensure that those are only going to people that have actually invested. But in the future, Celsius might go on the secondary markets, and you might be wanting to ask a few questions. And so the discussion forum is a place where there's a public discussion where everyone who is a qualifying investor on Bank to the Future can discuss. And the investor zone is where only qualifying investors that have actually invested in that company can have a private discussion.
Cool. I think that about sums it up, Simon.
I feel exhausted. I didn't
I'm
realize
sorry.
complicated
I'm so sorry. But yeah, these are the questions that are coming through in support, in Telegram, even in the live chat. I mean, the live chat, there have been quite a lot of questions about Celsius directly, but yeah. I would recommend that these questions are asked in the discussion forum.
Yeah, so when it comes to actual questions about the pitch and the company, we can answer questions about the platform, but only the company founders and owners can answer questions about Celsius. Because we don't want to misrepresent any information. We don't want to say the wrong thing. Only the company can actually answer those specific questions. We're not authorized to give investment advice. We can't, give you actual advice about whether anything's a good investment or not. All we can do is actually provide the deals and set a set of guidelines and rules that make this possible, and try and make it so that you understand as much as you can in this new online investing world. But yeah, if you've got actual specific questions about Celsius, then the Celsius team will be the best ones to answer that. And that's why we have the discussion forum. So that
and the investor page highlights exactly what the returns would be, what you would get from A shares or what you would get from B shares, right?
So if you go to the public page of the pitch, there's an FAQ under the View Investor page button. And one of those questions is, how do I make a return on investment? And so all of that is actually disclosed. And when you do the self-certification process, we actually test you on your understanding of how returns are actually made. And so it won't let you proceed until you've demonstrated that you understand how private equity works and how returns are achieved. But to summarize it very quickly, the company, this is a long-term investment. This is not a short-term trading cryptocurrency or anything like that. This is about putting money aside in a high-risk, high-return environment where you're looking for ultra-high returns, but over a very long time frame. And they're not necessarily liquid investments, so you're not going to be able to sell them easily. And what you're waiting for is, what venture capitalists are looking for is a minimum of 10 to 100 times return if a company succeeds in a big way. The way that you actually get your returns is either you sell them on the secondary market at a higher price, determined by the price of the company going up by future funding rounds, or someone puts an acquisition offer to buy all the shares in the company, or the company actually gets listed on a public stock market in the future. That process normally, for most companies, a company like Facebook took 10 years from startup to actually being a traded company. So that can take some time. Or the management might actually decide to buy back all those shares or something like that. Or the company fails and all your funds are worth zero at that time and it's a bad investment.
All right. I think we've clocked it up, Simon.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, thank you for joining us. And I hope the regulatory side wasn't too boring for you, but we just wanted to answer the questions that people have asked, and hope that you take this journey with us, because as you'll see, we do these regularly. We do this every week. And we try and take all of our customers and investors on the same journey, navigating these challenging changes in one of the most exciting and innovative sectors, where we're always trying to get that right balance between making sure that we are still here, which we have survived 10 years, and in crypto world, that is a lifetime. We are the oldest business in crypto, so we survived the test of time so far. And making sure that we're getting the innovation right. And I am personally a user of many different services, so I fully understand where the crypto investor's mindset comes from. But it's slightly different when dealing with traditional investments like equity, but then we try and make that accessible. So thank you very much for joining us on this journey. Thank you, Famida, for bringing out all those questions. We got a lot of work to do to make sure that we get through all those tickets, those verifications, and also improve the experience so that this is a lot faster and more simple in the future. We may not be the fastest at doing that, but we'll certainly do that, and we will be here for you. So thank you for your patience. And thanks everyone for this invested in Celsius. It's been a huge success. It looks like it's about to pass the $50 million mark. And that's really testament to the community that Celsius have actually built and the excitement here. So, we look forward to seeing that. Thank you. That's going to do it for this episode 63 of Bank to the Future Live. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.